When World War II finally ended and investigators began uncovering what had happened inside the Nazi camps, one name kept appearing again and again. Amon Göth was not just another Nazi officer. His brutality had shocked even a world already familiar with the horrors of the Holocaust, and it would eventually lead to one of the most symbolic executions of the post-war era. Vienna in 1908 was one of the most important cities in Europe. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was still powerful, and the city was famous for its music, theaters, universities, and culture. On December 11, 1908, Amon Leopold Göth was born there into a comfortable middle-class family. His father owned a successful publishing company, and Göth grew up with financial security, education, and opportunities that many people never had. But as he grew older, Göth became attracted to radical nationalist politics. By 1930, at just 21 years old, he voluntarily joined the Austrian Nazi Party. This was 3 years before Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. Göth was not joining a winning movement or looking for a way out of economic hardship. He joined because he believed in Nazi ideas. This is important because he was not someone who followed the Nazis after they became powerful. He supported them long before that happened. In 1931, Göth joined the SS or Schutzstaffel. At the time, it was still a relatively small Nazi organization, but it would eventually become one of the most feared institutions in Europe. The SS ran concentration camps, organized mass deportations, and played a central role in carrying out the Holocaust. Over the next decade, Göth steadily climbed through its ranks. He wasn't known as a brilliant military leader or battlefield commander. Instead, he gained a reputation for loyalty, obedience, and a willingness to carry out harsh orders without hesitation. In 1942, Göth was assigned to the office of the SS and police leader in Lublin, occupied Poland. This placed him directly inside Operation Reinhard, the Nazi plan to murder the Jewish population of occupied Poland. It was one of the deadliest phases of the Holocaust. While working there, Göth helped oversee forced labor camps and assisted in organizing deportations. He learned how the Nazi camp system operated and proved himself useful to his superiors. By early 1943, the SS leadership believed he was ready for a larger role. Before he officially became a camp commandant, he had already participated in mass murder. On March 13th and 14th, 1943, the Nazis carried out the final liquidation of the Krakow ghetto, and Göth played an active role in the operation. The Krakow ghetto had been established in March 1941 in the Podgorza district, a working-class neighborhood on the southern side of the Vistula River. Jews from across Krakow were forced into a small enclosed area of only about 30 city blocks. Around 18,000 people were crowded inside. Conditions were harsh, with severe overcrowding, food shortages, and constant fear of deportation. Even the walls surrounding the ghetto carried a cruel message. Their curved tops were designed to resemble Jewish gravestones. By March 1943, after thousands of people had already been deported to the Belzec extermination camp, the population had fallen to roughly 8,000. On the morning of March 13th, SS units and German police flooded into the ghetto. Families were forced out of their homes and assembled in the streets. The sorting process began immediately. Those considered healthy enough for forced labor were separated from everyone else. The elderly, the sick, young children, and anyone who could not keep up with orders were marked for death. Over the next 2 days, around 2,000 people were shot in the streets, courtyards, stairwells, and apartments of the ghetto. Göth was present throughout the operation. Carrying a pistol, he moved through the area and personally shot people. Survivors later described seeing him kill for no clear reason at all. A child running, an elderly person moving too slowly, or a frightened resident who caught his attention could suddenly become a target. Witnesses remembered his violence not as organized military action, but as random and unpredictable terror. After the killings ended, approximately 6,000 surviving residents were forced to leave the ghetto and march several kilometers outside the city. Their destination was a camp that was still being expanded and developed by the Nazis. That camp was Kraków-Płaszów. Płaszów was built on land that had once been sacred to Krakow's Jewish community. The camp stood on top of two Jewish cemeteries, the New Jewish Cemetery and the smaller Podgorza Jewish Cemetery. As construction began, the Nazis destroyed large sections of both sites. Thousands of gravestones were ripped from the ground and reused as building materials for roads, pathways, walls, and other camp structures. Prisoners were forced to walk over the broken remains of their own community's cemeteries every day. Göth officially became Commandant of Płaszów on February 11, 1943. At first, the camp held only a few thousand prisoners. But as deportations and camp liquidations continued across the region, the population grew rapidly. By the summer of 1944, around 25,000 men, women, and children were being held there. The camp eventually covered about 80 hectares. It was surrounded by electrified fences and guarded watchtowers staffed by Ukrainian auxiliary guards working under German control. Prisoners were packed into overcrowded wooden barracks and slept on crude bunks stacked 3 levels high. Most spent their days performing exhausting labor in factories, workshops, quarries, and construction projects connected to the German war effort. Food was intentionally kept at starvation levels. Most prisoners survived on watery soup, small pieces of bread, and whatever extra food they could somehow obtain through trading, smuggling, or theft. Malnutrition became widespread. Disease spread easily through the overcrowded barracks, and many prisoners became too weak to work. But the harsh conditions were only part of what made Płaszów so feared. The other part was Amon Göth himself. Göth lived in a white villa on a hill called Chujowa Górka that overlooked much of the camp. The location allowed him to observe prisoners from above, and nearby was one of the camp's major execution sites. Survivors recalled that he often stepped onto his balcony carrying a high-powered rifle, usually a Mauser Karabiner 98K, or sometimes a scoped hunting rifle. From there, he would fire into the camp below. These shootings were often completely random. They weren't formal punishments or responses to specific crimes. Sometimes he did it while still wearing his pajamas. Sometimes after breakfast. Prisoners could be working, walking, or standing in formation when a shot suddenly rang out and someone collapsed. The randomness created constant fear. Göth also owned 2 large Great Danes named Rolf and Ralph. He trained the dogs to attack prisoners on command. Former inmates later testified that he used them as another tool of terror. A prisoner could be attacked for walking too slowly, failing to salute quickly enough, misunderstanding an order, or simply being nearby when Göth was angry. Several prisoners died from injuries caused by the dogs. Among those assigned to work in Göth's villa was a young Jewish woman from Krakow named Helen Hirsch. She served as his maid and was responsible for cleaning, cooking, and maintaining the household. Although she worked inside the villa, she lived under constant fear. Göth frequently beat her, sometimes with his hands, and sometimes with a horsewhip. The punishments could be triggered by genuine mistakes, but often they happened for no reason at all. On the far side of Chujowa Górka Hill, only a short walk from Göth's villa, the SS carried out mass executions throughout the camp's existence. Prisoners from Płaszów, nearby forced labor camps, and smaller satellite camps across the region were taken there and shot. Their bodies were buried in large mass graves that stretched across the hillside. Estimates of the total number of people killed at Płaszów and its related camps vary, but Polish investigators and historians placed the death toll between 8,000 and 12,000 people under Göth's command between February 1943 and September 1944. These deaths happened in several ways. Some prisoners were executed at Chujowa Górka. Others were shot randomly by Göth or his guards inside the camp. Many died from starvation, disease, and brutal living conditions. Others were selected as too weak to work and sent to the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp about 60 kilometers west of Płaszów, where most were murdered. Göth also personally ordered and carried out executions on the Appellplatz, the camp's main assembly square. The entire prisoner population was forced to watch. These public killings were meant to spread fear. One of the most well-documented atrocities under Göth's command was the liquidation of the Szczebnie labor camp in September 1943. Following his orders, around 4,000 Jewish prisoners from Szczebnie were deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau and gassed after arrival. Hundreds of others were shot at the camp before the transports left. The operation took place over 2 days, September 21st and 22nd, 1943, and Göth directed it from Płaszów. While Göth was running Płaszów, a German businessman named Oskar Schindler was operating a factory on the other side of Krakow. Schindler arrived in the city in October 1939, shortly after Germany invaded Poland. He took control of a Jewish-owned enamelware factory at 4 Lipowa Street, later known as Emalia. Like many businessmen under Nazi rule, he used Jewish workers from the Krakow ghetto and later from Płaszów. At first, mainly because they were cheaper than Polish civilian workers. Schindler and Göth moved in many of the same circles. Both attended parties held by SS officials in Krakow. Both were known for heavy drinking, and both understood how the Nazi system worked. Schindler used that relationship to his advantage. He gave Göth expensive gifts, bottles of cognac and champagne, and cash in exchange for favors. Göth, who was deeply corrupt, gladly accepted bribes. In return, Schindler gained greater access to Jewish workers and was able to secure some protection for them. By 1943, Schindler began changing from an opportunist into a protector. He used his factory as a shield, arguing that his workers were essential to Germany's war effort and should not be deported or killed. He personally intervened to stop individual workers from being sent to Auschwitz and sometimes paid SS officers to release prisoners who had already been loaded onto trains. In 1944, as the Soviet Red Army pushed west through Ukraine and Poland, the SS began shutting down camps and moving prisoners elsewhere. Schindler negotiated with the SS, including officials connected to Göth's administration, to transfer his entire workforce to a new factory in Brunlitz, located in the Sudetenland area of what is now the Czech Republic. The list of workers selected for transfer contained about 1,200 names, and later became one of the most famous documents of the Holocaust. Every person on that list survived the war. The difference between the two men remains one of history's clearest moral lessons. In 1944, Amon Göth was investigated, arrested, and removed from command, not by the Allies or the Polish resistance, but by the SS itself. The SS had its own legal and disciplinary system, known as the SS Court. Its main job was not to stop crimes against prisoners. Instead, it was meant to prevent corruption and make sure stolen property, especially valuables taken from Jews, was properly handed over to the German state, rather than kept by individual SS officers. The SS was carrying out a genocide, but it still enforced strict rules about money and property. Investigators discovered that Göth had been stealing on a large scale. He took food supplies meant for camp operations, kept Jewish valuables that should have been surrendered to the state, lived in a villa filled with stolen property, and used prison labor for private projects that had nothing to do with official camp business. His lifestyle was far beyond what his SS salary could explain. On September 13, 1944, Göth was arrested by SS investigators and removed from command of Płaszów. He was sent to a detention facility in Bad Tölz, Bavaria, where he remained while the investigation continued. The charges included embezzlement, misuse of state property, and unauthorized mistreatment of prisoners that violated SS regulations. The investigation continued into 1945. During this period, Göth was examined by SS doctors who concluded that he suffered from a psychiatric disorder. Modern experts would likely describe his behavior as showing traits associated with narcissistic personality disorder along with severe paranoia. The diagnosis changed nothing. The charges remained, no treatment was provided, and Göth stayed in SS custody as Germany collapsed around him in the final months of the war. In May 1945, American forces advancing through Bavaria reached the detention facility at Bad Tölz. Germany had surrendered only days earlier, and Central Europe was in complete chaos. Millions of soldiers, former prisoners, refugees, concentration camp survivors, and civilians were moving across the region at the same time. In that confusion, Göth saw an opportunity to disappear. He gave American authorities a false name and tried to pass himself off as an ordinary German prisoner being processed by Allied forces. The plan failed quickly. Survivors from Płaszów had already begun giving statements to Allied investigators. The Jewish Documentation Center established by Simon Wiesenthal in Vienna and officials of the Polish provisional government. Göth's name appeared again and again in these testimonies. Survivors didn't simply accuse him of being a camp commandant. They described specific incidents they had personally witnessed. By early June 1945, American authorities confirmed the prisoner's true identity. Once identified, Göth was transferred into formal Allied custody as a suspected criminal of war. He was sent to the Dachau internment facility in Germany, where former SS personnel and other Nazi officials were being held, while investigators gathered evidence and prepared cases for prosecution. Poland moved quickly to secure his extradition. In June 1945, the Polish provisional government had established the Supreme National Tribunal to prosecute major Nazi war criminals responsible for crimes committed on Polish territory. Płaszów had operated in occupied Poland, and most of its victims had been Polish citizens, including both Jews and non-Jews. The Polish authorities believed that Göth should face justice where his crimes had occurred, and where so many of his victims had lived and died. The request was approved. In August 1945, Göth was transported to Kraków. The trial began on August 27, 1946, before the Supreme National Tribunal of Poland in Kraków. The proceedings attracted significant attention because Göth had become one of the most notorious camp commandants in occupied Poland. Chief Judge Alfred Eimer presided over the case, while the prosecution was led by Mieczysław Siewierski, an experienced Polish jurist who had spent months preparing the evidence. The prosecution built its case on three major foundations. The first was documentary evidence preserved from the Nazi administration. The second was physical evidence recovered from Płaszów and nearby execution sites. The third was eyewitness testimony from survivors who had lived through the camp and personally observed Göth's actions. The documentary evidence was extensive. Like many parts of the Nazi system, Płaszów generated large amounts of paperwork. Camp records, transport lists, administrative reports, execution documentation, and correspondence between Göth and higher-ranking SS officials had survived the war. Prosecutors compared these records with survivor testimony and used them to reconstruct a detailed timeline of the camp's operation from February 1943 until September 1944. Investigators also examined the physical evidence left behind at the camp. Excavations at Chujowa Górka uncovered mass graves containing victims from multiple execution operations. Forensic examinations found gunshot wounds consistent with execution-style killings. The remains were buried in separate layers, matching witness accounts that shootings had occurred repeatedly over an extended period, rather than during a single event. The testimony of survivors formed the emotional center of the trial. Many witnesses testified independently of one another, yet their accounts matched in important details. Among the most important witnesses was Helen Hirsch. As Göth's personal servant, she had spent long periods inside his villa and had a close view of his behavior. She testified about the constant fear inside the household, the physical abuse she endured, and the killings she witnessed from the house. Göth's defense attorney attempted to argue that he'd simply been carrying out orders within the Nazi chain of command. The defense claimed that responsibility for the camp's conditions ultimately rested with higher authorities. However, prosecutors focused on the many acts of violence that could not be explained as official duties. Witnesses described numerous occasions where Göth personally chose to shoot prisoners, beat them, or order punishments that were not required by any regulation. No SS order instructed a commandant to stand on his private balcony and use prisoners as target practice. No regulation required him to unleash dogs on exhausted inmates or repeatedly beat his personal servant. These were individual decisions, and dozens of witnesses described the same pattern of behavior. As a result, the defense's argument collapsed under the weight of the evidence. Throughout the 9-day trial, Göth showed little remorse. On September 5, 1946, the tribunal delivered its verdict. Göth was found guilty on all charges. The sentence was death by hanging. 8 days after the verdict, on September 13th, Göth was taken to a courtyard in Montelupik prison in Kraków. He was 37 years old. This location was highly symbolic. During the German occupation, Montelupik prison had served as one of the most feared detention centers in the region. The Gestapo used it to imprison, interrogate, torture, and execute members of the Polish resistance, Jewish civilians, and political prisoners. Witnesses reported that shortly before the execution, Göth gave a Nazi salute. Even at the end, he expressed no regret for his actions. The execution itself encountered an unexpected problem. When the trap was opened, the first rope broke. Officials quickly prepared a second rope and repeated the procedure. The second attempt was successful, and Göth was pronounced dead shortly afterwards. Following the execution, his body was cremated. Unlike many historical figures whose graves later became places of remembrance, no marked grave was created for Göth. No official burial site was recorded. The man who once ruled Płaszów through fear disappeared without a memorial, while the memory of his victims remained far more enduring than his own.